Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. I hope you're all doing well. It is a beautiful spring day here in mid-Michigan, and all of that sunshine and fresh air draws me out away from my winter hermiting. And do you think I went to the lake? No. Do you think I went to the park? No. But I did go to Dollar General, and I found some really great file folders to create with. Now I've got a couple of these pretty little folios, plenty of pockets here, plenty of room for your pictures and journaling. And this was really fun and fast to make. So if that sounds good to you, then stick with me and we'll make it together. Now, if you're a part of my OG crew, you will not be surprised to see that I've chosen to use this Simple Stories Remember collection as the first tutorial that I'm creating from that haul that I shared in last week's video. And I think this is very ideal for this sweet and simple style of crafting because it does come with a lot of different shapes and sizes of cut aparts, and so we can utilize those as inserts to fill those pockets. And so that is a nice shortcut to getting this folio filled. And I really love these larger florals paired with the geometrics, and of course the vintagey palette is always going to be my favorite. And so here's those file folders that I mentioned, and they did come in a pack of 6. They're just standard size, and they were $4 for the 6, but I was so happy with the variety of beautiful colors here. And even though they do have some foiled writing on them, we can bury that in between the layers, so you're not going to notice that. The one thing that I was not prepared for was that this was going to be a more of a shiny surface. It's not exactly glossy, but I will be using my 2 glue combo throughout so that I'm sure that all of my paper layers will be very well secured. So we're going to work on the base to start with, and I will recommend that you choose one of the folders that has the tab on the very side because you're going to want the full width here so that you can use it to fold up and have the right amount of room for the inside portion. And so the first thing I want to do, I'll just flip this over here and we can cut this into 2 portions that are going to be 5.5 inches, and that will be the height of the folio. So I'm taking the first piece, and this will be the one that has the small little notch cut out, and I'll just line up that center fold line with one of the grooves on the scoreboard. And then I want to create another score line 1/4 of an inch on both the right and left side of that first score line. And you'll see why when we get a little bit further along. But it's important to get these lines in first so that you can measure off of them. Then you want to bring that score line over to the one that you just created. And I'm going to measure off of 6 because that's just easier to measure down. And so I want to add 5 inches, and that is going to be the width of the folio. So I'll just put a score line here. So I'll just flip that over, line up my score line again, and count over to 5, and then add my next score line. So now I'm coming in with my guillotine cutter again, and I'm going to cut 2.5 inches on the side of that score line. Flip that over. And then those are going to become the pockets. So this will be the outside portion of the cover. We'll move to our second piece now. And I want to go back to the scoreboard and measure over 4.5 inches and score. flip it over and do the same for the other side. Now, when these are folded up, you may need to come in and cut a little bit of a sliver off the end so that the extra bulk doesn't wind up in the middle there. So I'll just hang on to this for now, and then if we need to do that later, I can do that. But this is going to be the center portion, and we need a way to attach that here so that it will be bound on the side. It's going to bring in this little scrap of placemat so that I don't accidentally pierce through this into my work surface. And I'm going to line up the fold here with the one on the bottom, and I'll use my awl to punch a little bit of hole through. This is very easy to keep lined up because they're both the same height. So as long as we keep everything nice and neat and even, we'll go through both of those layers. Now, it doesn't really matter how high up this goes, but I would recommend not putting it too close to the end so that it doesn't become fragile. Do the same for this side as well. And so that's basically just indicating to me where those holes need to go. So I'll come back in with my crocodile here, and I'll use the smaller side so that I don't have too large of a hole here. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll cut through those This will be where we can wind some string or twine through. You could use elastic like if you were making a traveler notebook, but because this doesn't need to come in and out, it's okay for this not to be stretchy. So now what I want to do is use some twine, and this is pretty twine from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and I'll just run that through so that I can attach these together. So I'll just go in one side here. I'm just going to start on the inside and work my way out and then back around so that I can bury that knot inside the book and it won't be shown on the outside. Doesn't really take too much excess here, so I'll just tie this off and get it good and snug so that your inner layer doesn't move around. Now let's give that inside a try and see if we want to remove any of that. I think we do. You see how it's starting to kind of buckle here. So I'm just going to go in and cut the tiniest little sliver off of each side here, and then I'll be back when we're ready to start adding our pattern paper. Now when I fold it, you can see that it's going to be much better shape. So now we can go forward covering the outside with the pattern paper, and I can use the bigger florals for that. So I am going to utilize my 2-glue combo throughout this whole process. I'm only going to show you on one, but from here going forward, I will utilize those 2 adhesives just so that I am sure it will stick to that glossy surface. For the papers that are on the cover, they are going to measure 5 3/8 by 4 7/8, and that will be for the outside and the inside cover as well. I'm just going to use Tombow for this. Use that sparingly. So I've added that cover now, and remember that we had that additional score line, and I'm going to center this pattern paper between those 2 score lines so that it will leave that portion of the spine so that it will accommodate the bulk of what we want to add to the inside. We want to do the same for the inside as well, and this is going to be the inside of our pockets, so we need to do this first before we close up that pocket flap. So I also want to add a pocket to this portion, and I've cut that from a separate piece of my pattern paper. It's 7.5 inches high by 4.25 wide, and it's scored at 5 3/8. And this will become the pocket there. And you can see that I'm using the B side as my layering pattern. And for this case, it worked out really well because this is non-directional. When I show you the other one at the end, it will have had a little bit of extra altering so that I don't have upside down patterns on the inside, but I'm just going to add that with my 2 glue combo. And then I want to seal this pocket up with my Tombow so that I am very sure that I'm going to have a good contact and it will be very secure. So take your time, wait a few minutes while this glue sets up, put a good pressure on that, and then this will be perfect for some of those tag cutter parts. Got the same for this side as well, so I'll be able to have my tags in these pockets. Now it's time to turn these outside flaps into pockets, and I do first want to add my Tombow, and this is going to keep it very secured. And then while I'm at it, I will add that to the pattern paper for the front of my pocket. Now this is going to be 5 3/8 of an inch high by 2 3/8 of an inch wide. Let me flip that over. So I did the same for this side as well, and you can see that I'll wind up with a pocket here and then a pocket over here as well. Now I want to start filling in this folded section with our pattern paper, and because I am trying to use this newer collection a little bit more frugally, I do want to utilize the offcuts. And so for the amount of space that I would need to stretch across here, the measurement for this piece would be 5 3/8 by 4 1/4. Now for my pieces here that show together, I'm going to join a couple of patterns from the offcuts to fill in this amount of space. If you're doing a full sheet though, you can just use that measurement. So this is going to be the offcut of what I have planned to use on the inside of this folded portion. And then I'll finish that off with the offcuts from the outside. And as we have learned with some mass-produced items, everything is not cut exactly perfectly in, so you can just decide to embrace the imperfection as I am. And so not all of the borders are going to be exactly perfect, but I think that it is still absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to do the same thing for this side as well. So I've got those covered, and it makes sense to me to have the smaller strips as borders on the outside. So we're just going to finish off the inside here. And because these all show together, I want to use that same pattern just for a more consistent look. So close that up, and that is going to be the inside of the folio. Now let's add a little bit of extra detail to the cover. And remember, we're keeping this sweet and simple. So even though we're going to be adding layers, we're not going to be adding those big dimensional items. I do want to add a little bit of dimension and detail for this, but we're going to keep it sweet and simple. And so I have a piece of offcut from the other album that I created that I'll share with you when I'm done with this. I did add that to a piece of heavy duty cardstock and also some foam spacers. So we're going to get a little bit of extra sturdiness out of this as well. And to add detail to that edge, I used this Tim Holtz tool to kind of rough it up a little bit. I'll add a pretty little die cut doily cut from a crisp white cardstock. I used a circle die with a stitched edge to cut a portion of one of the cutter parts out to have a more interesting shape. And then here is the remainder of the tag I used on my other album, and I just thought that was kind of a nice extra little detail for the cover. Now, as much as I like all of those large dimensional embellishments, I think this is quite sweet and very pretty and has a lot of detail for the cover. Now remember, we did add 1/4 inch to each side of that fold in the folder, and this is really going to give it room to bulk up, to fill out when we add all of the layering to the inside. So you're building in the amount of space you need to finish this off. So we're going to be using some of those cutter parts to fill in our pockets. So I just picked a couple here of the different shapes, and I thought it would be fun to use these to fill in. Remember that Simple Stories has blank portions on the back so that you can add all of your journaling to give the details for those pictures that you want to add. And so I'm going to put 2 of the tag shapes into the smaller pockets. And then for each of the outside pockets, I thought I would combine a 4x4 and a 3x4, and those are going to fit in there perfectly. And when it's folded up, they will be very secure. So these 2 pretty tags will go on this side. So that's going to be it for this folio. Now remember, I mentioned that I had also created another one, and so this is going to be the same measurements and all the same layering. I just went with a more pink kind of palette for this, so it's just a little bit lighter, and it still has all of those fun inserts. Remember that we had a little bit of excess cut off from the folder, and you can bring that in as a layering detail if you want. I just added that solid strip to separate those 2 patterns so the page wouldn't look so busy. And these were really fast and easy to put together. If you want to add all the other bits, you can, but I think this is a really great quick craft and would be perfect if you're working in a craft fair. You can have quite a lot of these made up, and they don't take too much time, and they're very easy. So I think you will really enjoy making them. That is going to be it for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. You can find links in the description below. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye!